Yes, on that note, we have another very interesting panel discussion with some lovely panelists coming up on the stage. We have six speakers up here to talk and discuss about a very interesting topic, which is creative at machine speed when AI turns every brand into a content studio. And to do the honors, we have six wonderful speakers joining us. So please put your hands together and welcome our first speaker. We have Mr. Adityan Kayalakal, who is the VP brand at Pocket FM. A warm welcome to you, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Pawandip Singh, who is the VP Marketing at Rapido. Can we have a big cheer for sir as he comes up? Yes. Joining them on the panel, we have Ms. Riya Kumbhani, who is the head brand and products at Oliva Clinic. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. Next on the stage, we have Mr. Bhuyan, who is the senior manager, TVS Motor Company. A warm welcome to you as well, sir. Joining the panel, we have Ms. Shubha Pai, who is the head of brand solutions at Google. Can we have a clap audience? Yes. And of course, we have our final panelist, Mr. Vivek Bhargava, who is the co-founder at Consumr.ai. A warm welcome to you as well, sir. And our moderator for this lovely session, we have Mr. Ranjeet Kumar, who is the co-founder and CEO at Team Pumpkin. A warm welcome to you all. The floor is all yours to drive the conversations forward.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Probably this is the panel which is in between you and your lunch. So I hope that we'll make it interesting for you. I am Ranjeet. Thank you all panelists. I think great introductions, and probably I'm happy that all the brands and companies that you represent is basically our everyday life, right? I mean, from you and these services, these brands we love. So I'm happy to have perspective on AI from all of you. And I guess today there has not been a single day that we may not have touched upon AI or used AI. I flew in today from Mumbai, and my flight number was AI 2184. You know, so I was thinking, oh my God, okay, so the day started with AI, okay. So I think the all of you lead brands and content and touch upon consumers' life in some way or the other. So I would actually start from the extreme left, really, from Vivek, who has been in the agency world, sold his company, and now onto his next with Consumr.ai. Okay, an important part is that we were chatting, and important part is that how much of AI is into our marketing system, into our tools, into our technology, into your product, and the product we use. So perspective on how much of AI is integrated into our today's life from a product point of view, if you can shed light on that.
So I think what has happened over the last 20 years is that people had data, but they could not use that data and convert them into actionable insights. What machine learning AI has done is able to capture this data at scale. So let's say our platform, it takes 1.2 million instances of Meta, 3 billion plus logged in users on these platforms. What people are doing on Google, what people are sort of doing on Meta, what people are thinking on Google, what buying on Amazon, listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. Imagine these trillions of data points now being converted into a user, a cohort, and a brand being able to use that knowledge to improve creative, media strategy, content creation, influencer selection, product features, competitive strategy. So earlier this data did exist, but without AI, there was no way to capture it, make it actionable, and make it that personalization at scale. So I think basically this is what AI is doing. So if we used to produce Tom and Jerry earlier, you do it with 500 people. Today, one person can do Tom and Jerry, but we make Shrek, right? Which still requires 500 people. So what AI is doing is, it's able to do things that could have not been done earlier with more humans. But I think that is the biggest change that is happening, that it's just transformational in the way companies now approaching the same problem and solving it in a very unique way, which would have just not possible without AI.
Awesome. So I guess this gives me a perspective on to the next panelist, Shubha, who is at the ringside of all things AI at YouTube, and you have a perspective on a lot of things at one time. We see that the whole creative process has multitude of type of creative, to the aspect ratio, to whole sort of diversity of creative need that brands and companies agencies need. How do you think that company like yours or AI today is sort of dealing with that? And I know your company has Nano Banana, right, which is at the forefront of this. So how, in your perspective, we are dealing with the diversity of creative needs?
What a fun name to pick. That was an internal name picked by the product person working on it, on the engineer working on it, and just stuck, and it stayed. So to the point that Vivek was making, I think the whole there's one bit of scale and personalization, but there is another bit on agility, and I feel like that has become a growth driver, or it's no longer just about a cost cutting, or it's no longer just about scale. It's about also speed, and it's about cultural relevance. So India is a dynamic market. A lot of things are happening across the length and the breadth of the country, across age groups and cohorts, genders, languages. And I feel like if there is a way to use AI as a collaborator creatively, that bit becomes very interesting. And I'd like to share a few examples of brands that work with us. So Myntra has this brand called Myntra Forward, right? That's very Gen Z pointed. And Gen Z is all about trends. And it becomes very difficult to take something which is trending and then put it into fashion and clothes and then try to predict when to launch it. By the time you do that entire process, maybe the trend is over. So what Myntra Forward did is they partnered with Google AI to create some sort of a predictor, a trend predictor, which cuts what I like to call mind to market rather than time to market. That time gets shortened significantly from months to maybe a few weeks. So the moment you do that, you've suddenly created a lot of relevance for Gen Z, and it's a competitive differentiator. Similarly, Swiggy just went on this thought experiment, Instamart, last year, and they said for all cultural festivals, right? And festivals are chalk and cheese apart. You don't celebrate Diwali the same way across the length and the breadth of the country. I'm from Bangalore. We have a very different set of celebrations than the one that you have in Delhi. So they said, we'll use signals to create multiple assets and reach out to customers at the speed of culture. And we'll, just as a thought experiment, we'll see how that compares performance-wise with, or efficiencies-wise and ROI-wise versus the assets that we create. So firstly, like we were discussing the time, of course, the agility of it matters. But also they found very interestingly that AI, when you use it with the right kind of inputs, it is able to create that cultural resonance as well. And those creatives actually performed really well. And just from Google, you spoke about Nano Banana. There's also VO3 for videos. There is just Gemini in itself for inciting and a lot of deep research. And then there are tools that have existed earlier as well, but we don't think about it as much. But, auto trimmers, something that can flip a horizontal to a vertical. So basically the idea is you build once and you deploy everywhere and you do it fast and at the speed of culture. I think that culture, resonance and speed are the real flex, are the real growth drivers.
So for those of you who want to check out the Google products, go to Google Labs, and they have tons of tools for you to sort of see and check out. Great. I think the whole evolution of AI is probably, I think Google has been at the forefront, but this gives me a perspective from you, Ron, that you are managing content and social for TVS, which itself is a legacy company, right? So how a legacy company looks at AI, and of course, I'm sure it's a modern company today, but how it looks at AI, especially you lead EV. Now, whole EV business is itself also evolving, right? So while your marketing, tools of marketing is evolving and your business is also evolving. So how do you sort of see AI helping you in that?
Okay, so first thing is the mindset, right? So we have to, if not change the mindset, we have to shift the mindset. And mindset changing requires a lot of things, but two things that are very important and which AI is actively helping me is, firstly is localization, right? For example, and localization, not literally language. For example, I'll give you, if I have to sell my scooter in Indiranagar, right? I know exactly what I need to tell to that customer. I will start putting more features about the tech features, the Alexas, the navigation, etc. Because I know what that certain cohort cares about. But if I get the same person in Shillong, where they care more about the power, they don't have the electricity penetration isn't as much, they care more about the range and the power. Earlier, I'd have one pitch. Now I have pitches not just for regions, but for dealerships and inside dealerships as per different customer cohorts. All that one prompt, one well-written prompt can take care of that for me, right? So that is the first one. Within this only, languages, right? AI language translation has come a long way, right? It has now gone near colloquial. Rest of it, the store staff can take care of it, right? So in this way, I'm taking care of the localization part. Next comes the repetition. If I'm changing a mindset, I can't just do it in one campaign and like, we'll see. It has to be hammered every single day because the other competitors are not going anywhere else, right? When I say other competitors, not just EV, but ICE and every other mobility option that's there. So I have to churn content out, if not on a daily basis, but on a regular basis. That's where AI helps me, right? I don't have to waste a lot of time researching. I don't have to, see in which state what is trending. All of that can be done in one go, and my team can just focus on producing. So these are two things I think where traditional or non-traditional as well, everyone can use AI in content sphere really, really efficient.
And do you also focus on AEO, GEO because you also manage content? So of course, how the content appears on Google search.
Yes.
I think probably you both can collaborate on that, in order to, get benefited. Yes.
I have a wonderful example for this. So recently we were debating on this only, and on the inside you have a lot of technical jargon. For example, range. It's one of the key selling factors of EVs. And you have range anxiety, IDC, and all of these jargon floating around on the inside, on the brand side. But on the outside, the only thing they care about is the phrase, and it's a Hindi phrase, kitna deti hai? How much? Literally, that's all they care about, right? So you have to speak in their language, you have to go into their universe, you have to feed all of this in, you have to make sure, not just from a digital point of view, this stems into your local level as well, so that they know exactly what do they want to hear. So these things, that we take care of in this thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I think next to Riya really, which is very, very tricky. I know you lead a marketing and brand for a very trust, kind of services which requires trust, right? Oliva Clinic. So how in aesthetic business and also healthcare, how do you see trust and content? Because what I see, I want to look like that, right? And I actually walk in, and if I don't look like that, probably I'm disappointed, right? So I think trust is a very important part. So how do you deal with trust while also scaling up your marketing?
Yeah. So I think the thing that it's in a brand where you're trying to build trust, right? Your content is very educative, very informative, and that's how you build trust. And the biggest place where AI helps in that is that you can crunch the timeline. The most time-intensive part of the process is the medical research around it, making sure that the consumers are seeing what's medically and accurate scientifically, and that usually is the most time-consuming. Now, what AI allows you to do is get that research in a glance, structure it in a way that your experts can validate it quickly, as opposed to you going through the time-consuming process of validation. You can validate that very quickly. The other place that it really helps us is basically identifying, the small movements in where consumers are with respect to what they're consuming, what is an area of interest for them, and how we can quickly sort of get those early signals. And then feed it back into like what creative is performing. So I think where AI really helps us is that going from sort of longer timeline campaigns, which would probably span weeks or months, to really have an always on sort of ecosystem of content where we're constantly learning, we're constantly sort of, improving, but our speed to which we're able to react to what consumers want and providing them accurate information to help build that trust is crunched significantly. So, and that allows us then the economies of scale. We can scale literally the rate at which we're building trust much faster thanks to AI.
Awesome. I hope that the AI sort of gets into a stage where it like real equal to AI. Of course, we are into that journey. and of course, healthcare companies specifically will get benefited a lot. Okay, next to Pawandip, a company I really, really love, a challenger brand who have come up and, sort of shaken the market, and I have personally watched the journey from a bike ride to, of course, my company forces me to use Uber Corporate. If they don't, then I'll use Rapido for sure. So, yeah, in my personal space, I use Rapido a lot. So I think, question to you that all the utility companies, so to say, Swiggy, Zomato, Rapido, they are a part of culture today, right? If you miss them, if you don't use them, you miss them. So you have to really have a very deeper connect with your consumer. You have to stand, and at one space, you go to millions of them together, right? Unlike probably a lot of brand which has a sort of narrow cohort and so on, and you reach to millions. So how is, in cultural context, how relevant is AI in creative production, creative content generation for you as Rapido?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ranjeet. I think just to give you a flavor of what we are, so you mentioned, challenger brand. We do 60 lakh rides a day across 536 cities. I have 25 lakh odd captains on my platform. At any given time, you open the app, there will be about 5 lakh captains active. So there is a consumer side and then there's the captain side. Okay. There is only one truth. Consumer wants the vehicle, the ride as we call it, fast and सबसे सस्ता. और कुछ नहीं है, यही सत्य है. Okay. Captain says, I need to maximize my rupee earning. Okay. Spend the least time. So this is the paradigm with which we are currently playing with. Now the thing is this: we have a very simple philosophy at Rapido that was for us speed and scale is of utmost importance. We use, and I'm sorry, we don't use AI as a god. We use AI as a enabler. I call it a servant. Okay, to help us cut through the clutter, and help us in these two cohorts, the scale and speed. Now, in this particular aspect, what becomes very important is that we clearly segregate the insights portion, the consumer insights, which is our moat. Okay, we segregate that. We use that to use AI. Okay, not the other way around. So we use AI as a sounding board, but that's about all. Hyper-localization, sharp targeting, culturally relevant campaigns are all part of this particular big scheme. So, to your questions, the sum and substance of it is that, how it has really yielded dividends for us is keep both the things separate. Okay, use it for scale and speed. Use it to have deep entrenched consumer insights, and make sure that you don't use it to generate for the heck of generating.
Right.
So
right.
Those are the things which we do it, and with God's grace, it's yielding dividends.
I think what you're saying is that probably AI plus human is the way currently, at least, that you need a human intervention to help us into marketing. Of course, they use AI the way that they use. So I think a good sort of a counterpoint that AI has not yet reached the level to 100% automate our marketing campaign and creative campaign like that.
Because
right?
अभी तक AI भावनाओं को नहीं समझ रहा.
Yeah.
It is not able to understand that nuance of the ethical nuance, the cultural depth. So yeah, till that. So it is human first and then AI.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so Adityan, I think your company is the reason, of course, YouTube as well, that we put earphone in our head and sleep, right? So I think you guys do content at scale, and I'm sure that at the cusp of language and audio, which is probably a solved sort of a use case for AI, or at least 90% solved use case for AI. So how do you see in terms of not just marketing, but content creators using AI? What are the things that you have seen as a way to democratize AI to sort of going to deeper semi-urban areas, rural areas, and so on and so forth?
Fair. And I think the fundamental understanding of this comes through one definitive rule in AI. All AI is not the same, basically, right? There's starter, medium, advanced within this entire world. And I think the more conscious we are of that, the clearer it becomes. What we all use on a daily basis, everything that's built into search or Gemini or maps, or it's fairly rudimentary. It's meant to make our lives easier in a very specific direction. And if we go to, say, Google search or general chat GPT and say, hey, give me a translation of this, it'll give you a very literal translation of it within the realm of the knowledge it has, right? And here it's still a tool. It's just a force multiplier. If the person on one end of it using the AI is more nuanced about the way they're asking it, the more nuanced the result you get out of it. But with smarter AI, with more advanced artificial intelligence, it is doing some of that heavy lifting for you. So one of the things that we've been able to do is we realize that, look, everybody in this room possibly has a great story to tell, right? You might not know how to tell it. You might not know how to package it so that it's ready to be a movie, a book, a TV show, or an audio story which can go on our platform, for example, right? But it doesn't stop you from being a storyteller. What we want to do is encourage storytellers to come to our platform and us find ways to make our AI sharper towards one means and one end, which is how do we elicit that story from you in the best way to make an audio show out of it.
Right.
And I think that's the space we're in. We're not trying to be a generalist AI in this, and that's something that people get used to using. Our use case is purely in the advanced space where we have put in our years of knowledge, our treasure trove of data to say, how do you make a story, or an idea go to a story using AI as an enabler for that, basically. Right? And things, right? The things that keep you hooked onto it, basically. And I think we've sort of found that out, and now we've been able to sort of institutionalize that into a process using the intelligence that we have. Yes, AI has taken the journey much further ahead than where we should have been traditionally on that. So we're very happy with the way that's going. But it's also allowed us to bring writers from places that you would not imagine. So the biggest advantage is, I remember, I think all of us have seen Ratatouille, right? And Anton Gustav says in that anybody can cook. And I think one of the beliefs that our management has is anybody can really write. But can anybody produce a fully fledged end product? Not necessarily. And I think that's why we really help them, basically.
Nice, nice. Okay, so I think AI is so pervasive in our lives today, and I'm like the flight I took, but I'm sure that there may not have been a day that we may not use AI. So I just want to touch upon that. When did you use AI last? I'll start with you. When did you use AI last? This morning, yesterday, 5 days back?
Listen, I have 4 AI apps on my home screen. So, and the thing is, now even using Chrome is technically using AI, right? Because if you're going into Chrome and typing out something you want.
But cognitively using AI. I am using AI.
I'm very happily using Arc browser, and I'm using ChatGPT almost on a daily basis, multiple times a day. I used it to get here as well.
Nice.
To figure the right dealer to come to, basically, right? So those kind of things. But also sometimes it's in the simpler things. Like I feel good AI apps today help you plan a big chunk of your life as well. What they do is take the load off of. Like earlier, if I was making my schedule, I still go into Excel and calendar and making all of that. Today, I just go to ChatGPT and say, listen, this is my calendar. This is what I'm looking to do. Make my diet plan, make my sleep schedule, make my flight plan, tell me what my week looks like, right? And it gives me a very nice looking grid, which ticks off all my OCDs. So yeah, using it every day is convenient, but I feel it's to get rid of some of the heavy lifting from life so that we can spend more time being a little more creative, basically.
I think for many of us, probably the subscription cost of AI tools might be more than OTT tools today, right? I mean, we might be using more AI tools than OTT tools. How about you? When do you use AI? What is your perspective on personal usage of AI?
Knowingly, unknowingly, you use it, you do it, But frankly speaking, we were talking, right, I personally feel that, that AI, most of the AI tools which I use in this space, this thing is there, and I'm in a creative field, it takes things away from you. It takes that, that right brain, that small part, it leaves a little more to be desired, So I consciously try to, get into, I have days where I detox I try to stay away from it. Because for me, the meta thought is that we are in this space. We have reached where we have because of that alpha thought which we had. And that no AI tool could have given us that particular thing. So just to stay on the right course, I try to, detox as far as possible. But yes, that's where I am.
I have learned about that AI भावनाओं को नहीं समझता है, and from a digital detox to AI detox. So great, I think great perspective. From you, Riya, when did you use last AI?
I think personally all the time, because now I think the personal habits have also changed. Like earlier, like Adityan mentioned, because we're so used to Google and our searches being, we get like driven by AI, that something as simple as where you would type in something shorter earlier, now the default is you type as you're thinking, right? So you type a running commentary of what you're thinking, and that's how my habits have evolved. And so even the smallest things, I think personally now, AI is very sort of front and center of it. Creatively and personally, I think there's always, as in due course of the work, it comes up. But I think in day-to-day life, it's, now part of habit almost.
It's part of
So,
habit,
yeah.
yes. We cannot imagine not using AI for a few days, right? Except if you're Pawandip. Yes.
I hate this answer, but 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Because
see?
I'm somewhere on the spectrum that you are. And I'll share a nice story from a few days ago. I was traveling and there was no network. And I had some work to do. And I realized how much I'm dependent on AI to do even the most simple cognitive tasks. I blanked out. And that's when I knew कि थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो रहा है. Right, so I need to do a detox. I am not as good as you are, but I think after this, I think this is something that I have to put real thought into it. But when I see my usage of AI, now it's become like a very good friend and a good sounding board, which started off for work. Now it's gone into personal. Now I'm literally planning my wedding also on that.
Okay, all
So,
right.
yeah, it
Nice.
is my closest confidant right now, but yes, I need to change.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
So some of the usages that we spoke about are very subconscious usage. You're using it, but you don't know. You're not thinking you're using AI as you're using it. But one of the, and this is a little bit of a shameless YouTube plug because I'm not sure how many of you know of this feature. When you're watching really long podcasts, and let's say you want to tease out certain points about a topic being discussed, a subtopic being discussed, you can use the Gemini symbol under the video and ask to point to the minutes where that particular topic was discussed. And I find that feature very useful, particularly when there is a long 3-hour podcast and you just want to get highlights about a particular topic. So I think that is what is a slightly different use case I use it for. But I agree that you shouldn't let it run your thinking. And to that extent, even when we were discussing in the speakers lounge, humans should, and we say this even at Google, that you use the word enabler and servant. We use the word collaborator. AI is a fantastic collaborator, but in the marketing sense of how we use AI, it really, the human intuition, the human lived experiences, the cultural nuances you spoke about, these are things that are very, very human. So we feel that humans are in the driver's seat, and creativity still should stem from humans. But a lot of the other advantages, I think, that AI brings, speed, agility, all of that, I think is there. But I use it sparingly. I'm not. I haven't jumped on the bandwagon so much for thinking, but I use it very, very consciously.
There are two kind of people, I guess, in AI. One is you, and the rest are probably, like us. Yes. How do you use AI, Vivek, in life and work?
So first of all, I
Personally.
just started my Meta glasses recording. So I've already started using AI to record this and probably share it on social media.
Nice.
So I think the way I look at it is, I think we are discussing this topic and we are even asking this question because we still consider it not ubiquitous in our life, right? nobody would not ask the question that when did we last use electricity, or you last use a mobile phone, or internet, or so many of the technologies have become an integrated part of our life. So I think basically what's going to happen is, right, this is going to become as ubiquitous as what electricity is. And the goal is that, see, the best chess players in the world are actually teams of AI and humans coming together. They beat individual humans and individual AI. So what's going to happen is, right, our life is going to become a co-pilot. We'll realize it without devices like this. Like if you actually forget your phone at home, you're going to go back and fetch it before you go to the office. There is no chance you'll say, okay, you know what, I'm going to manage it without the phone today, right? Same way with AI, if you look like I'm getting a spam call. So if you get basically, same with AI, right? I think if you fast forward a few years, Paman will find it extremely difficult to detox from it on a basis, because what will happen is everything we do, say, let's say what we're doing with Consumr.ai, right? What we're doing is we're creating a twin of your customer. Every single decision you take, from marketing to creative to content to media to strategy to bhavna samajna, everything should become a sounding board. I'm not saying you follow it blindly, but that is going to be there where every time you take a decision, you need, if you have the ability to ask your consumer, that what do you think about it, right? And different segments of your customers, only real time, why would you not do it? So my belief is that AI is going to become a part of our lives, like how electricity is. When it goes off, right, a conference stops, a mic stops, everything stops. We'll wait for it to come on. That's how AI is going to be in human beings and Homo sapiens. And I think nothing's going to change that.
So great. Yeah, yeah.
And to your point, sir, how many of us search on AI or do stuff on AI in incognito mode? How many of you have got the cookies disabled when you are on any of those platforms? AI can become, there can be two Pawan sitting here with you. If I train my AI with my whole heart and that person knows exactly what it is, then you are in competition with two Pawandeeps. Okay, now, but that is a trust you will have to put your trust in that hand. Okay, currently, we are neither here nor there. It's a little philosophical discussion, you know. So, if once we reach that stage, the evolved stage, you know, and we are ready to give all, you know, like he said that, you know, AI knows much more about me than probably your wife, okay, then it's becoming a very powerful tool if you use it properly, because it's adding a dimension to your personality, to your prowess, to your strengths. But yeah, so you have to give something to, you know, this thing
To get something, yeah. I think last round of question here, where, you know, I think probably for audience would want to know, what is the ROI of AI? You know, are you seeing that, you know, at some point in time you'll replace agency like us as brands and companies, or the aesthetic part of it? Do you think that the whole ROI bit, that, like you said, that I don't use 100%, I use where it's required, okay? So the whole aesthetic part of it, the whole ROI part of it, do you see that a business case of content creation and creative generation, how far it has reached in terms of ROI? I know the production cost of videos are today skyrocket if you go and shoot, but how much of AI is helping? And your experience or industry experience you have seen, anyone can really go ahead. Yeah.
I'll give you a very interesting perspective. See, 80% of our business comes from US, 20% rest of the world. Americans think of AI technology from an abundance mindset. How it can be used to make money. Most emerging markets, including India, they think of technologies how to save money. The problem is that AI, we are living in an abundant world. So this attitude of scarcity towards AI is disastrous for transformation. And that's the challenge I think emerging markets like India is going to face, where the mindset prevents the ROI. Because no IT guy out here thinks of how to make money. The IT guy has been trained for the last 40 years how to save money. And that is where he's going to miss out on ROI, because unless until the senior management and the IT guys change that mindset, it's a disaster. I'll give you one example. My IT guy had to give me a dongle which had a higher speed. But my Canadian developer was in town. He said, I'll give it to you after a month. My platform costs ₹1 crore a year. If I make 20 pitches and if one confirms, that gives me the dongle for next 35, 50, 100 years. But he wanted to save ₹3,000. As an IT guy, what he was doing was absolutely right for the company. But that's how his mindset is. And there are billions and billions of people, or 10 million IT people in India who have exactly the same mindset. कि यार co-founder को dongle नहीं देते हैं, ₹3,000 बच जाएगा.
Nice. Yeah. Shubha, your perspective on ROI cost, production cost?
I kind of agree with him and have a similar sort of a story, right? In the spirit of abundance, one of the things, abundance, but it is linked to saving cost as well. But you were very limited when you wanted to do creative testing. So you would park your money on one hero creative, which is, now carrying the burden of expectations and everything that you've put into it. Now you have the ability to create 100 variations, test them, figure out what is working, scale that, create multiple edits of it and all of that. So I feel like that abundance comes in, and the net cost, it is coming from a cost angle as well, but I think that sets you free, a lot more free. And so having the mindset of being able to do more rather than the mindset of, as he said, I thought it was beautifully put, I can't top that, but the mindset of, how do I cut a corner here and save a cost here, I think, and I come back to speed and agility, I come back to cultural relevance and the ability to do all of that a lot faster, ability to think of use cases that you had said, ye parking lot mein dal dete hain because this is not going to be feasible. I think those are the areas that are now coming to the forefront. So you're sort of unleashing a lot more potential, and that's where the abundance comes from. And so I feel that it really sets you free. And if you're in the creative space, everything that you said, maybe nahi kar sakte hain. Now there is a way to just test that out. So that excites me. The possibilities that are there with AI, I think they're tremendous.
I actually completely agree with both of you. For a service company like us, it's a new revenue stream of doing things with AI and probably scale company. Your
Okay, so what I feel is AI will reduce the effort barrier, but not the thinking barrier, right? So when you mentioned about the agency and brand equation, AI will also expose a lot of mediocre content creation, because even if you put a very basic prompt into any of these agents,
laziness.
yes, they'll give you a decent content that you can put out, right? So now that goalpost has changed. Now, with respect to the relationship between agency and brand, now you have creative strategists, then you'll have prompt engineers, right? That's where it'll go. So it's a tool. It'll be used as a tool. The people's designations might differ, but I don't see this relationship changing a lot in the next 5 years at least.
Right.
I think to your point on ROI, and like what Ron said, that AI will bring certain things, make accessible, like abundance accessible to everybody. And I think in that context, your moats become even more valuable. Because earlier, you won't be constrained by resources, but then your other moats, which are, your understanding of the consumer, your ability to bring trust, your expertise in that respective field, is what will separate the mediocrity from, truly content which will yield ROI. So I think then that's where the multiplier on ROI will probably come in, that the stronger your moat is where you will get the rewards and the dividends for it. And those are the ones that you have to then work to build, and I don't know, and like everybody has been saying that, that human insight, the understanding of the consumer, that's basically what you'll bring in, and the expertise is what you'll bring it. Some of the other things will become table stakes and abundantly available.
There'll be a new normal.
Yeah, and to the point that you are making, why are you doing what you're doing? I think if you just because you can and you have the tools at your disposal, is it the right thing to do? And that judgment, that strategic choice making, the curation. Well, I can do it in some psychedelic colors, but should I do it? Will it make sense? And again, insight, consumer understanding, strategic choices that you need to make, what why are you doing what you're doing? I think that remains uniquely in the human realm, and that is still a competitive advantage.
Yes. Yeah. I think the equation is different, right? I think the problem is, I agree with Vivek. Thinking of from an ROI point is almost defeatist, because you're literally saying that let me reduce everything that I'm doing. Because honestly, if you want good work out of AI, it doesn't mean getting rid of all your creative people, right? Because if you do, like today, you can have the most average person on the street punch in a prompt for a great piece of copy, and you can have a great writer punch in a prompt for a great piece of copy. Output's going to be dramatically different.
Yes.
Because the referencing that you give it, the kind of brackets, the sort of baggage that you're adding to it, right? All of that matters. What is the output that you're demanding, basically, right? I feel AI is a multiplier in terms of experience. It really changes what we can do, because today, if we are making Game of Thrones, hey, HBO could do it. Today, I think a YouTube channel that really wants to do it, and there's a guy who's doing this. He's making the entire Mahabharata and releasing episodes on Instagram. Now, one creator doing this from end to end with an immersive world and stuff like that, 10 years back, we would have laughed about it. Yeah? And we would have said, this looks tacky, it looks like puppets and all that. Today, the thing looks amazing. So it's opened up the possibilities of a lot of things that now is suddenly more accessible to people. But it still requires a certain level of intelligence and experience to use well. You can't have somebody who knows nothing about it go there, stumble around and get lucky with it. It's not trying to encourage that, but it does genuinely reward curiosity. It rewards that ability to keep pushing harder and harder and harder. And for companies, that's not going to come out of, hey, we'll just hire fresh kids out of college and we'll get what we want. It comes out of saying, let's hire subject matter experts. Let's bring those people in and we'll figure. And it doesn't mean giving up agencies. Like, I don't think creative people want to go work for a company like Microsoft because it's not the right environment. Agencies foster the right creative environment for people to maximize their creative thinking, right? So you will still find better writers there than maybe you'll find in a Microsoft. So Microsoft can say, hey, we'll sack all our agencies, but that's possibly going to affect the level of creative film that's going to then be made from there, and basically.
And also, to your point, completely agree that a great photographer can actually generate a great content out of AI versus, someone who's not technically sound of lighting and posture and proportions and things like that. So you need subject matter experts to sort of use creativity. You have a final point to say.
Yeah, so to your pointed question, Ranjeet, will agencies like you be out of business? I think you will never be out of business. And I genuinely feel without Piyush Pandey giving फेविकॉल का जोड़ है टूटेगा नहीं क्या होता
right?
You know, what you or people of your stature, with what you give us or what we create together, the brand and the team creates together, the germ of the thought, AI can take it
Ahead.
You know, it can give it speed, it can give it scale, it can give it penetration, it can give it targeting, it can give it super personalization. All that can lead to good attribution.
Yes.
And that good attribution is ROI.
Yep.
Okay. But that good attribution will only happen, the latter part will only happen अगर आपके पास वो फेविकॉल का जोड़ है टूटेगा नहीं.
Correct. Yes.
So, may I disagree on this? Yeah. Actually, what will happen is, right, I agree with you 100%. The challenge in the agency world is, I've been in an agency world 25 years, right? If you have 60,000 people, 100 of them are Piyush Pandays. Rest 59,900 people are actually not Piyush Pandays. That entire layer of people, right, they can get replaced. So now what's going to happen is you're going to have 100 who will be running a 60,000 people company. So the agency model is broken because if you take consulting, right, you get billed for your time. The agency model, when I've been in the company, is I'm going from one pitch to the other. As I grew in the company, when 1,000 people were reporting into me, after that, I was not into any execution. I grew as an agency because I could solve client problems. But I was not basically allowed to, in a way, solve any client problems. I would go from sales to sales. The only way I was evaluated on my performance was sales kitna kiya, right? Grow kitna kiya. So that means basically what happened was those people, right, will continue. But the whole model is the minions is who make money for agencies. That is what is getting built. We are not getting built for ourselves. And that minions get replaced with AI, the whole model is going to break down And it's a vicious cycle, right? You lose people, then you can't build for them anymore. You lose more people, AI replaces it. It's a vicious cycle. And understanding agencies build tech, figure out this is going to happen, and do something about it. At least the current model, the way the agencies are structured from remuneration point of view, structure point of view, it is going to be a disaster. That is my 2 bits.
So I have a point of view on just a final point really, since I run an agency of 400 people. I think the important part is that in marketing world or any sort of sphere, you work with partners. It could be a technology partner, it could be a marketing, could be event partner, whatever, right? I think the important part is that is the partner moving ahead with time? If they move ahead with time, they will create opportunity for themselves, anyone who wants to join a service-led company or run. If they don't move ahead with time, then probably they're left out. And probably out of a lot of 55,000, 50,000 people, it's very important for service companies to inculcate movement with time with their companies, much like at sort of brand and company where you would be doing that. So I guess probably it's a similar story, so to say, and it has become simplified for someone to create content. So as agency or as a partner, I have to be one up. Like what next? You have to accuse one.
So,
Yeah,
so
and,
I'll
more,
be-
and more,
Okay.
and more, and more.
So let's say I'm not saying anything right now. Doesn't mean I have nothing to say.
Okay, all right. Next panel discussion on this topic. Yeah, I think you had something to say.
See, this has been a constant problem for agencies, right? I think agencies over the last 20 years have been debating. Look, there was a time when they built on commissions. The commission model ended, the service model started, right? And they've just been trying to sort of change the model for the longest time. And credit to Google and Facebook and all, because they said, look, let's figure a way to earn money on outcomes, not on, say, number of people and things like that, right? And that's going to be key. If agencies can change the model and not build on hours and actually build on outcomes, I think everybody will be happy to work with them. But then it's skin in the game from both sides, basically, right? And you've seen it. There are agencies who are doing outcome-based. You're one of them. There's a couple of others. There's partners talking to you guys, but the traditional model, WPP had 200,000 people, I think 5 years back. They have 97,000 people or 100,000 people today. And their business has shrunk from 12 billion to what, 5 billion, 6 billion right now?
Both of them was exactly the same market cap 10 years ago. Publicis and WPP, $7-8 billion each. Publicis now is 25, WPP is 7. So they've become 1/4 of that because they relied on people, media, and they didn't acquire CP Nitro or a lot of the other tech company Epsilon.
That's why their alumni did well.
Okay, we have to get back to, if any question last, yes, please. Yes, couple of questions we'll take, yes.
Afternoon, everyone. Full session. So I have discussed a lot of promising use cases across the 2 days. I have two sobering and rather darker aspects. First, Aditya, you can, from a content standpoint, one of the during lectures they talked about that as models, LLMs at their heart are just fancy autocomplete, probabilistic. And as newer models evolve, they will.
I think you can take this mic because you're sounding like AI right now.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
So sorry about that. So what I was saying was that as new models evolve, they're going to be using a lot of AI-generated content, and human-generated content is going to get, it's going to get shrunk. And just take an example. I was coming from Uber. The guy was looking at a bhajan based out of Nano Banana. So as models are now starting using a more AI-generated data on the footprint, does that not degenerate their capabilities? And now systems are now extensively relying on that. So that is point number one. And point number two is we talked about the digital clone, right? We have 11 labs, we have Notion. You mix that, you can create a clone out of it. But as systems are evolving, they are giving more capabilities. But humans at their heart, their cognitive abilities are, as you talked about, that they're going to, and this is an open point for everyone. So where does that leave us as an aspiring country? Because humans will always be at the heart of commerce, right? And if we are being too reliable on these systems, where does that leave us? So these are some of the points I wanted to.
So yeah, to address your content point first, right? I don't see a challenge there because, look, we haven't gotten to a point where AI is sentient and writing its own stories and keeping you entertained. We're not batteries yet. This is not the Matrix. We're not at a point where it's a distraction, basically, right? I think, like I said earlier, it's still a force multiplier. If you're somebody who wants to tell stories, AI is going to help you tell better stories. Certain advanced models will even help you structure it so that you can get an end product, not just a heightened experience, for example. And I think certain models have gone far beyond an autocomplete, for example, right? And within that, yeah, you have tools that can finesse this even more. Today, I can't sing to save my life, but hey, maybe AI can help me do that. So suddenly, I don't have to call Arijit Singh into the studio to see what this song is going to sound like, for example, right? So somebody with the core capability to write a lyric can now see what his song is going to look like. But yes, it will still take Arijit to come in and say, इधर ना वो एक twang add करेंगे. So I don't see the human element being changed. I see the ability to experiment exploding in different ways, right? Today, when we discuss ideas, and there's a bunch of people from all of us at Pocket FM, I don't think we look at it as a written word. For example, when we're throwing ideas at each other, we try storyboard it or mood board it and things like that. So we're able to show a reference which is a lot closer to what you're thinking. Because sometimes when you're thinking in an image. How often are you able to reproduce that into a piece of paper and share it with somebody, right? That ability has been brought a lot closer to you, basically. So it really is down to how responsibly / irresponsibly we are using it. If we use it well, massive force multiplier. If we use it badly, it will just become lowest common denominator because it's still learning from lowest common denominator. It's learning from the internet. The more you're feeding into it, the more intelligence is feeding into it, it gets a little smarter, but the more creativity that you add into it, it gets that much more smarter, basically.
Because you spoke about content and creation in India specifically, there are 15,000 creators on YouTube in India, Indian creators with 1 million subscribers. And the way I see it play out is that there will be far more opportunities for far more creators to do far more interesting things, leveraging, all the AI-related tools and facilities that are going to come their way. So to that end, I think what you are talking about, which is sort of hinting at some sort of a doomsday, it could go in that direction and be very bad for a country like ours. Could it happen? I mean, who knows? But I think that if you were to index more on the opportunity side of it, it is even more with platforms like YouTube. There was always a democratization of creation. So you didn't have to have a fancy studio and expensive. You could just have a camera and you could talk to that camera and you could just win people's hearts. Mr. Beast's channel globally, even today, it's a human creator channel, is still the largest channel, individual creator channel on planet Earth. And I think that connection, the ability to create that connection, the ability to tell your stories, the ability to humanize experiences and reconnect and connect, I think that doesn't go away. But it requires conscious choice making at some level, rather than if you pick choosing to be lazy, then you're right, it could go in a completely different direction. But I feel like the force multiplier effect is more in democratizing creation, democratizing access to tools that help you create and give you the voice if you don't have the voice, and things like that.
And one quick thing here, how many published authors do you think there are? Like I went through this, right? I used to ask Penguin and Random House and HarperCollins and all that. In India, there must be like 1,000, 5,000. How many do you think there are on Pocket FM today? 4 lakh. So the ability is to take somebody who's not a trained writer and actually make them capable of becoming an author. That is the capability of AI if used well, basically, right? So it can change a lot of people's lives in that way. There are some fascinating stories. I encourage you to look up the life of Ajit. He's one of our writers on Pocket FM. He's a guy who's now writing multiple stories, making a living on it, making a great living on it, earning metro salary, living in a small town very happily and stuff like that. And it's magical because he was a manual laborer before that. That kind of career graph doesn't exist for most people in the corporate world, but it exists in creative channels. And that's why I think what we're trying to bring in is first world thinking rather than third world thinking of save money. Like most people go to AI and say, hey, what is a detergent I can now use instead of using Surf Excel and maybe save $10? I'm saying, how do you use AI and say, how can I use the skills I have to make me more income or sort of use it in a way that can make more money for me?
And just to the point of economics of it, right? 21,000 crores paid out to creators in India in the last 3 years from YouTube, just to the point that he's making, which may not have happened without this whole ability to create. So I think I remain optimistic of the opportunities. I'm thinking of things that I could do that I can't draw or to save my life. But I often think that if I could create a comic strip with my version and vision, and all that was holding me back today was that I can't draw to save my life. Maybe today I can. So I remain optimistic.
Anyone else? Any question? Okay, there. Okay.
This is open to everybody. AI is a force multiplier, but then isn't the pressure on brands very, very real? Because there's just so much content that's being created. It's very easy for anybody today, even with a very lazy idea, to create content in volume and just push it out, which means the consumers of that content also have a massive fatigue because they are being exposed to so many messages and not all of those are relevant or make sense. So in that case, for brands today to really stand out and sort of like get their consumers' attention has also become all that difficult.
What is the last ad that you remember that comes to your mind?
I actually don't. Like, if I recall, that's what I was thinking, that there are all the old school ads have still stuck, but the new age ones aren't.
Okay, I have a slightly different perspective, maybe because take it with a jar of salt because this is my day job. But
Absolutely.
I feel like the ads that stick still are good old long form, storytelling ads, and where brands have chosen to do something which is very different. So the ads that come to my mind are, for
Lahori
example,
Jeera recently, right? The whole storytelling that has happened.
I haven't caught that
Okay.
one, but the ad that comes to my mind from IPL last year, because that's another moment where there is a lot of clutter on all platforms, is actually, and the category doesn't exist now sadly, but Dream 11's ad, like a long 3-minute ad, was so much fun to watch. So I feel like there is a way to deploy media, and I'm getting slightly away from creative, more into media choices as well, that of course creative carries 70% of the burden, but there are smarter media choices. And I think the first question that you posed was about long form, short form, vertical, horizontal, this platform, that platform, and somebody chose to answer that with AI. You want to be able to build, deploy everywhere where the customer is going, and then make sure that you are using media abilities in addition to creative firepower to cut through that clutter as well.
Interestingly, I was with Hotstar and did a lot of IPL advertising there. And one thing that we noticed, all of these platforms, which are your, like new age media platforms, like say, for instance, even Hotstar, where advertising on IPL earlier was available and accessible only to a few brands, but then it became accessible to everybody because Hotstar said that, hey, even if you have 10,000 rupees today, you can deploy on Hotstar during IPL. Now, with that, what happens is you get that 1 10-second slot. You can't grab any attention. So from that perspective, I agree with you that yes, media is important and you can be very creative with it, but the clutter still remains, right?
I think Pawandip.
Can I just give a contrary view? See, a great product does not require any advertising. If you take iPhone 1 versus iPhone 17, the reason 17 has to be advertised so much because it's not a great product that iPhone 1 was.
No new feature there.
Right? Second thing is, you may not remember any ads, but in the last 3 months, 6 months, have you bought anything on Instagram? Right? I bought a lot of stuff in Instagram. My daughter's a content creator, and our house is full of stuff that we buy from Instagram. So what happens is, right, sometimes if you have the right communication at the right moment for the product that the person needs rather than just desire, because even if we remember the Ferricol ad, but how many of us have actually made a decision to buy Ferricol?
Fair. So you're
Right?
saying
So sometimes you don't have to boil the ocean. You don't need to influence a billion people about a certain communication while your actual target audience, like people who buy luxury in India, right? It's limited. It's 2 million people in India who basically buy luxury. You don't need to influence a billion people. If you can communicate your brand to those 2 million people, you'll get a sale.
In that
So
one
again,
minute, yeah.
So again, my 2 bits, my belief is we are from advertising industry. That's the reason we want people to remember our ads. But that's for our vanity. The brand wants to sell. Either they should be able to sell it at a higher price or sell more. Anything that achieves those two objectives for a brand, that's what the brand desires, the outcome, not brand building.
And AI is playing a role there to
absolutely.
making sure that you see something in that moment where your propensity to buy is likely the highest because of the signals that you have left on any of these platforms is all AI. So yeah.
Media, yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your attention. And thank you, panelists, for great discussions and your time here. Thank you in Bangalore traffic. Thank you very much for joining in here.
Yes, we'll take a group picture before we let you go off the stage. Yes, you can step in front of the table so we can cover you all. And to the others in the room, our next session resumes at 2:15 p.m. We have yet another interesting panel discussion. So please be back in the hall by 2:10. Lunch is open on the outside. So please do help yourselves and be back inside the hall by 2:10 p.m. for our next interesting panel discussion. Thank you so much. See you all by 2:10. Thank you very much to all those who have turned inside the hall on time. We are beginning our next panel discussion in just 5 minutes from now. So in case any of you on the outside can hear me, please do join us inside the hall. We have a super interesting panel discussion lined up for you and we are starting in just 5 minutes. Thank you very much for your patience.